motion. Help us get things rolling tonight by introducing yourself in the chat. Tell us your name and where you're from and why you're tuning in. Our program tonight has two separate segments. First, we'll have a discussion with Our Revolution's first crew of candidates that we're endorsing for 2026. Troy Jackson, candidate for governor of Maine. Donovan McKinney, U.S. House candidate from Michigan's 13th district. And Robert Peters, U.S. House candidate in Illinois' 2nd. Then in our second segment, we'll dive into the organizing work inside the party to root out corporate influence and the consultant class and big money politics that doesn't win new voters and doesn't deliver for working people. Larry Cohen, board chair of Our Revolution and longtime DNC member, will lead a discussion with Jane Clabb, vice chair of the DNC and president of the Association of State Democratic Committees, and Shushila Jayapal, former congressional candidate from Oregon who knows a thing or two about going up against big money. Real quick, let's see who we have in the chat. I'm seeing Darcy from Colorado. Thanks, Darcy, for joining us. I'm seeing Norma from El Paso, Texas. Thanks for joining us. Carolyn from Eugene, Oregon. Hi. Jeffrey from Chicago. Bridget from Portsmouth. Peter G. from Honolulu, Hawaii. Thanks so much. Phyllis from Pennsylvania. Joanne from Pennsylvania. Thanks so much, folks. People joining from all over the place. So glad to have you. Once again, if you're just tuning in, my name is Liz Hohenberger, organizer here at Our Revolution, and we are just about to kick off our live call to fight oligarchy. Keep boosting the chat. Tell us your name, where you're from, and why you're here. This call is all about strategy. It's about how we fight back at the ballot box, in the streets, and inside the Democratic Party. You'll hear from our endorsed candidates running to win in 2026 and party leaders who are taking on big money and standing up for working people. And we'll share how you can help build this movement to take back power from the oligarchs. We'll be joined by Troy Jackson, candidate for the governor of Maine, Donovan McKinney, U.S. House candidate from Michigan's 13th district, Robert Peters, U.S. House candidate in Illinois' 2nd, Jane Clabb, vice chair of the DNC and president of the Association of State Democratic Committees, Shushila Jayapal, former congressional candidate from Oregon, and Larry Cohen, DNC member, chair of the board at Our Revolution, and former president of the CWA. Real quick, our movement is committed to taking on Trump and the oligarchs on every front, and there's tons of ways for you to get involved, big and small. Join over 60,000 activists around the country to become part of our citizen action team and choose your role, from organizing events to amplifying our message on social media. All right, let's see who else we've got joining us tonight. We've got Ann from Princeton, New Jersey. We've got Susan from Scottsdale, Arizona. We've got Liz from San Diego. We've got Janice from Seattle, Washington. We've got, who else do we have? Thanks so much. There's so many people joining. It's almost hard to read you all. We've got Mark from Lincoln. We've got Joe from Texas. We've got Jody from Woodland, California. That's my old stomping grounds. We've got Debbie from St. Paul, Minnesota. We've got Luella McQueen from Jacksonville. We've got someone from Vegas, baby. We've got someone from Evanston, Illinois. We've got folks from all over the country. It's so great. We've got Rebecca from Georgia, Vicki from Washington. Greetings from Fort Collins, Colorado. That's so great to see. Craig from San Diego, Laura from Michigan. Wow, we've got so many people here tonight, and we're so excited to have you all. With that, let me hand it over to our host for the evening, Our Revolution Executive Director, Joseph Guy-Varghese. On to you.
Thank you, Liz. Brothers and sisters, good evening. My name is Joseph Guy-Varghese. I'm the Executive Director of Our Revolution, and I want to welcome you to our Fight Oligarchy Town Hall. Our mission in this moment is to break the unholy alliance between state and corporate power. We just surveyed 5,000 Our Revolution members about what you think our top priorities should be for the next 4 years. And here's what you told us. Priority number 1 is to defund the oligarchs. That's right. Priority number 1, defund the oligarchs. Priority number 2, related, is to get big money out of the Democratic primaries. These top two priorities were followed by climate, healthcare, jobs, and immigrant rights. The bottom line here is that our members, who are progressive voters, get that the system is not just rigged by the rich, it's owned by the rich. And they want us to take concrete action. That's why our revolution's committed to fighting Trump and the oligarchs with a 3-point strategy. Number one, we're going to be electing progressive champions up and down the ballot who are committed to breaking up the power of the oligarchs, who are committed to defunding the oligarchs. Number two, we're going to be working to get oligarch money out of the Democratic primaries and eliminate the influence of corporations and consultants in what should be our political process. And number three, we're going to fight against the oligarch agenda from Capitol Hill to city halls. And we're going to fight for an agenda that delivers for poor and working class folks. Tonight, you're going to be hearing about what we're doing on each front. Our first segment is going to feature our initial round of endorsements for 2026. We've got Troy Jackson, who's running for governor of Maine in the House. We're going to be also joined by Donovan McKinney, a U.S. House candidate from Michigan's 13th District, and Robert Peters, who's running for Congress from Illinois. All of these three individuals are proven progressive champions. They come from the working class and they're committed to fighting the oligarchy on every front. Our second segment tonight is going to include Democratic Party leaders, progressive leaders who are working inside the party to end oligarch influence within our primaries. Our Revolution Board Chair, Larry Cohen, a longtime DNC member, is going to facilitate this discussion with Jane Klebb, who is Vice Chair of the DNC and President of the Association of State Democratic Parties. She's also an Our Revolution member, and she's going to be joined by Sushila Jayapal, who is a former Our Revolution endorsed congressional candidate from the great state of Oregon. But before we bring up tonight's guests, I want to introduce Vincent Vertuccio. He's one of our amazing organizers who, like Liz, has been fighting oligarchs on Capitol Hill. And I want him to give us a little bit of a report about what we've been doing in DC and around the country. Vincent, tell us a little bit about what our Citizen Action team has been up to.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joseph. So excited to be with so many incredible people here tonight. Our Citizen Action team is made up of tens of thousands of Americans all across the country who are committed to fighting this fascist administration and the oligarchs who operate it. Trump and the GOP have been attacking everything that matters to working people, our healthcare, nutrition programs that serve the most vulnerable, public media stations that serve rural populations, slashing global health. We are experiencing class warfare, and our government has picked a side, and it is not ours. And that is why our Citizen Action team is here and ready to fight back, and they have been fighting back. Just a few days ago, our Citizen Action team delivered 70,000 petition signatures directly to Senate offices in Washington, D.C., demanding that Republican senators don't cut funding for public media that serves rural America. We have stormed Capitol Hill to demand an agenda that actually works for working people. We have staged lobby visits where we bring constituents directly in front of their representatives and senior staff. We have even gone to Trump's golf course in Virginia to protest as foreign billionaires strolled in to make corrupt deals with our president in exchange for crypto cash. And we have fought against even the corporate Democrats who want to enable this president to get even more corrupt corporate dollars with the crypto industry. We are not slowing down because the oligarchs are not slowing down either. That is why this tonight town hall matters. This is more than a conversation. This is a call to action. If we are going to seriously stop and contest Trump's agenda, if we are going to protect our communities and our neighbors from cruelty and austerity, we need to beat back the billionaire class, and we need to fight on every front. We need to fight on Capitol Hill and pressure vulnerable and swing Republican senators and Democrats who don't have a spine to reject Trump's agenda. We need to fight inside the Democratic Party to end the grip of the corporate consultant class and oligarchs' money influence on our primaries. We need to fight in the streets where activists have turned out tens of thousands at mass protests across the country. And we need to fight hard at the ballot box, from the local to the national, to elect champions like the ones you're going to hear from tonight. This movement that we are all a part of, only works because of you, the people, the grassroots out in the states. We fight together and we win. And we are going to drop a link right now in the chat where you can sign up to join our Citizen Action team, so you can be a part of all of this essential organizing work, whether it's showing up at your representatives' offices, whether it's canvassing or phone banking and electing champions, whether it's just boosting a message on social media. It all counts, because there's something that each and every one of us can do to play a role in resisting Donald Trump and the oligarchs. So thank you so much. So awesome to be with all of you. Sign up for that link in the chat.
Thanks, Vincent. And now I want to bring up our very first guest of the evening, Troy Jackson. Troy served as president of the state senate in Maine, and he's now running to be governor of the state. He's got Our Revolution in his corner and Senator Bernie Sanders. Troy, welcome to our Fight Oligarchy call. How you doing?
Yeah, very good. Thanks for having me here tonight. This is awesome.
Well, Troy, glad you took some time off the campaign trail to speak with our national membership, both in the Zoom room and on our social media platforms. So, Troy, we've talked. I know that you were a union leader. You were involved in taking on the timber titans in Maine to win better wages and benefits. Tell us a little bit, tell our audience about your personal story and how that brought you into political work.
Yeah, well, I'm a fifth generation logger. My younger son's sixth generation logger from northern Maine. Now, I've been in the legislature for the last 22 years, but you know what? I never expected I was ever going to be in the legislature. What brought me to it was, watching my community, squeezed by big money, the industry holding people that worked incredibly hard, in a very dangerous occupation. And one of the times when I was very young, my dad brought me to a strike where all these men were trying to not even get more money. They were just trying to hold on to the rates that they were being paid. And, there's like 100 men that were waiting for the big landowner to come. And when he got there, what was for me like I was like 11 or 12 years old. I was in the seventh grade. When he got out of the car, like all these men were, joking and laughing previous to him coming there. But when he got out, he didn't get out and say, hey guys, what can I do to help? Or how can we resolve this? He didn't do anything to try and de-escalate the issue. He just get out and said, if you don't go back to work for what I'm paying you, I'm going to replace you all in the morning. And I was standing behind my dad, and it was what before that had been somewhat, a jovial thing, which I'm sure was what they were trying to do to get rid of the anxiety. All of a sudden became a very, for me as 11 or 12-year-old, became very scary. And I can remember standing behind my dad, being very upset, being very afraid, still looking out behind him. And that was the end of the negotiation. It was just go back to work or I'll replace all of you, no questions asked. And I didn't really understand what that meant until years later. I went to work in the woods too. And then whenever I ran into that very same mindset, either do it or go home, or I'll replace you, which I've, felt so often. then I understood what my father must have felt like standing there with the man that had all the power, all the influence, standing there telling him to go back to work or I'll replace you. But the frustration, the anger, and the sense of having your pride taken away while you're standing there with your son standing behind you at that same time. And I've seen that so much since then. I've felt it as a worker. I've seen it in the Maine legislature. I've seen people with power and influence. There's always somebody with that power and that influence that's telling people, do it or go home. And they know that they have the power. They know they can wait you out. They know that if they squeeze, if they buy the people that have the electoral power, that they'll get their way. And for me, that has been the thing that has driven me throughout my entire time. That's the unfairness of that. The people that have been left behind, the people that don't have that power, the just total feeling of so many people being left behind and being told like that, and watching that happen to my dad, watching that happen to my friends, my family, my community. And it just drives me crazy. And it just shouldn't be like that. Everyday people should have people in their corner. And that's why I'm so honored to be here tonight. That's why, for me, this race for governor is about upsetting the status quo and putting power back in the hands of everyday working class people, because I know what that feels like. I know that anger. I know that sense of pride being taken away from you, and it kills me. And I'm going to do whatever I can to be the person that rights the wrong and puts the power back and people that deserve to have that will deserve to have somebody in their corner.
Well, Troy, let me ask you that and follow up on that. Fighting the powers, right? Speaking truth to power and fighting them is central to who you are. And so when you're elected, what's your plan to fight the oligarchs and deliver on a people's agenda? What are you running on? What are you seeing people respond to?
Well, I'm seeing people respond to having the ability to have a transparent government where, they actually have the opportunity to come in and make their case. I mean, we've had so many opportunities here in the Maine legislature to have everyday people get, their opportunity brought in, make their argument for collective bargaining, to have no on-compete clauses in their case, and no those things be vetoed, have buy American, so that people that have jobs here in Maine get their opportunities. There's just so many things that everyday people just want an opportunity to compete against big corporate people that offshore take jobs away, the lowest common denominator. And I just feel strongly like we, with these clean energy jobs, I mean, we can offer good paying jobs to people here in Maine, and they can have those opportunities, and we can bring people back into the party that have left here. I mean, you got Donald Trump out there that has never done anything to help a working class person, but people are flocking to him because at least he talks like he's going to help them. Democrats have kind of given up the message to people like him. We got to get back to actually helping people, put food on the table, fill their oil tank, give them health care. I mean, I live in an area that people can literally look into Canada that has health care, have prescription drugs. I mean, I've tried numerous times to do more on prescription drugs here in Maine and had those bills vetoed because big pharma comes in and they don't just hire a couple of lobbyists, they hire all the lobbyists. That's the type of stuff that just drives people in Maine, and I'm sure across this country, completely insane. And that is the type of things that I think people are feeling like there's nobody in their corner. And oftentimes I think they're right.
Well, I think you might be right about that, but we're going to change it
Exactly.
when we elect you, brother.
No more status quo.
No more status quo. We got to upset the system. And, I think one thing that's unique about this race is the fact that you were a union leader, that you've been fighting the good fight for a long time. And the other part is you're not necessarily part of a family legacy. there's several candidates in this race who are part of political dynasties. Do you want to tell us a little bit about who you're up against?
Well, yeah, in this race here, I mean, I have to run against Congresswoman's Pingree's daughter and Senator King's son, which good people, but obviously it's got a lot of challenges with having people that they're more of the political insiders. So I don't have that family name, but still in all, we're going to work hard and do what we can to overcome that.
And right now, just state of the race, how you doing in terms of fundraising and volunteers, and specifically, how can our Revolution members in Maine and around the country support your bid?
I mean, I think we're doing great. I mean, we did very well fundraising wise. We were right in the thick of it. One thing that I think was different about us is that we had over 5,000 donations, which is I think 5 times more than the next candidate. Which I think the next candidate only had 1,000. Our average donation was only $50. So it was small donors, grassroots. Which meant that we can go back to them time and time and time again, which is exactly my wheelhouse. I mean, that's who I am too. So I mean, I think people that want to get involved, we got a lot of people. I mean, I just got endorsed by the AFL-CIO, which is the first time ever that they endorsed in the gubernatorial primary, which I'm very honored. We've got a lot of individual unions that have come out and endorsed us. I mean, I think we're building a big ground game, but I think if people want to have again, somebody that's not the status quo, somebody that understands what it's like to get their hands dirty and be working class. This is a campaign that is completely different. I mean, I'm not part of the institutional class here. I have been in the legislature for a while, but people know that I'm not one of the traditional families. I'm an everyday person that have kind of broken the mold, and if I get to be governor, I'm certainly going to break a lot more molds.
Right on. Yeah, that's right. You're a pace-setting candidate and the type of candidate that we're proud to support, and our members and organizers are going to be doubling down as we get into 2026. Troy, thank you for joining us, and for all of our members who want to get involved, you can sign up for our Citizen Action Team to help elect people like Troy to run states. That's going to be very critical in our fight against the powers that be. Next up, I want to introduce Donovan McKinney. Donovan's running for Congress from Michigan's 13th district. He's endorsed by both Our Revolution and Bernie Sanders, and he is taking on a multi-millionaire, self-funded Democratic incumbent. That's right. He's taking on a sitting member of Congress who is not a progressive, but calls himself a Democrat. What's unique about Troy is like Donovan, what's unique about Troy, or unique about Donovan is like Troy. Donovan was a union organizer and comes from a working class background. Donovan, glad you're able to join us tonight. I see that you're sitting in your car, and thanks for squeezing us in between campaign stops. Tell us a little bit about your background and how that brought you into politics, brother.
Yes, just appreciate everybody on this call. Keep organizing, keep fighting. That's what we need to do. I'm just getting out of one of the council meetings in the district that ran over. So my apologies for being in the car. Wish I was at home, but this is way too important to pass up. So, but for those folks who don't know, grew up, born and raised in the district. Grew up with my mom, my grandmother, and younger brother. We grew up poor. We literally moved over 13 times across the district. Didn't know where our next meal was going to come from. But I remember a defining moment in my life, and it was when I was in the 10th grade. Those folks who don't know, I went to public schools, neighborhood schools. I grew up on the northeast side of Detroit. 48205 zip code, if folks familiar with that area, is also known as the red zone of 420 die, which out of the past 18 of the last 20 years, we have led the country in homicide rates, or became top three. So very violent area in terms of gun violence. In my ninth to 10th grade years of high school, in the span of 18 months, I attended 14 of my friends and family's funerals, all due to gun violence in our neighborhood. And I remember coming home one day from school, and my mom was sitting there at the kitchen table, bills piled up as usual, and she was crying, like profusely. And this time it wasn't for the unpaid bills and trying to figure out how to survive. She literally came to me because she came bullseye to me, beelined when as soon as I got in the house, and she was crying. I said, "Mom, what's going on?" She just found out another young black kid was just murdered in the streets of Detroit. And she pulled me to the side, pulled me by my shirt, and literally looked into my eyes as she was crying and said, "You have to survive." And so literally, that particular moment was the final moment in my life that really prepared me and got my mind right to say, hey, we need to do better. We deserve better as a community, and we have to fight for it. And it just led me to the public work I'm doing now in elected office as a state rep. And I'm looking to take that same, grit and determination in the halls of DC.
Well, right on, Donovan. So, as a state rep, you've been a leading progressive voice fighting big utilities, trying to get state contractor money out of politics, right? You're taking on the local oligarchs and some of the national
Yes,
oligarchs. So, tell
yes.
us a little bit about how that is going to inform how you govern when you are elected to the U.S. House.
Yeah, exactly. So, I've led the fight myself in state rep dealing with Gala. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with him at all. But we led the fight. We introduced legislation last term. We just reintroduced it about 2 months ago to take all corporate, utility monopoly money out of politics in our state. And I want to continue that fight once we head to DC, because we can overturn Citizens United through congressional action. We must do that on day one. That is really top of mind because, the opponent I'm running against, he's only a member of Congress in name only. But Sharif Tanadar is the epitome of what corporate oligarchy is all about. He's a multimillionaire who continues to take corporate money, continues to take APAC money, and like continues to vote against his district. Literally earlier last week, he voted. He was one of two Democrats to vote with MAGA Republicans to support crypto and the crypto billionaires to make more money. It is absurd. He literally voted a few weeks ago, I think the week of No King's Day. He got barred from speaking at the Indivisible rallies because of it, but he voted in a House resolution to thank ICE for a job well done. What in the heck is he doing? This is the most Democratic liberal district, congressional district in the state. This also is the third poorest congressional district in the country. We need folks. We cannot afford to waste any seat, Republican or Democrat. We need good people that are going to represent our values, represent our interests, and fight for us and put us first.
So, Donovan, our revolution is proud to support your campaign. We're going to be throwing down as we get into 2026. We want to make sure that you come out on top and take out this pro oligarch Democratic congressman. Um, and I want to encourage everyone to, if you want to get involved in our electoral work this year, whether you're in Michigan or around the country, sign up for our Citizen Action Team, and we'll connect you to organizers who can plug you in to help elect bold progressives like Donovan. So, Donovan, again, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to speak to our national members, and we will be with you in the trenches.
Thank you, brother. And thank you, everybody. God bless.
God bless. So, next up, Our third and final political endorsement on this call is next up is Robert Peters. He is a state senator in Illinois. We have endorsed Robert in the past, and we're proud to endorse him along with Bernie Sanders in his bid to win a seat in Congress representing Illinois' second district. So, Robert, welcome to our call. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to get into public life.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Our Revolution. It feels like it was just under 10 years ago. I was a delegate for Bernie Sanders and watching Our Revolution really start up. And here we are today with a movement that continues to grow across this country. So for me, I guess my story starts from birth. I was born hard of hearing. My biological mom struggled with drug addiction. I was put up for adoption. I was adopted by a civil rights lawyer for a father and a social worker for a mom. And the thing that got me through life was a sense of community. And what we've seen over the last 30 to 40 years is people lose community, and isolation has really taken over. That disinvestment has destroyed the bonds of solidarity between people. When I was a kid and I struggled, and my adopted mom struggled with alcoholism and mental health issues, I had neighbors who had their doors open at the time of need. They were there for me and they were there for my family. And I fundamentally believe that's important. That's what we need from our government is people to be there for people in a time of need. People to have their door open when you need it most. People to have their hand out to help lift you up. And that's something that drove me as I got out of college and I went into politics and then community organizing. And as an organizer, I worked on two things. I worked on criminal justice reform and economic justice. And I said, the key is how can we take the labor rights movement and the civil rights movement and bring that together? And so I worked on things to, end the system of using money to hold someone pre-trial and move to a system based off of safety. I literally did civil disobedience to raise the minimum wage to get people to a living wage. I gotten myself into civil disobedience to protest a budget that was giving rich people tax breaks while working people were not only being taxed at a higher rate, but struggling to get by to be able to keep their homes. And as a state senator, and I've been a state senator for 6 years now, been able to do a lot of work. One was fundamentally shifting our state from a system based off of money for pretrial to a system based off safety, changing our healthcare laws so that we can get rid of step therapy in Illinois, and that we got rid of prior authorization when it comes to mental health care, and strengthened the Department of Insurance to do rate review on insurance companies. I'm the chair of labor and have carried many labor bills to, Illinois banned captive audience meetings. We strengthened our state worker protections, particularly in making sure that if there's any walkbacks from protections at the federal level, Illinois will not go back with them and maintain strong worker protections. I strengthened temp worker laws along with a bunch of temp worker organizers to make it so that temp workers cannot be used as scabs in the midst of a strike, and that they have the ability to organize and get the rights that they deserve. Illinois is in a unique place, and I think that what we need in Congress is people who aren't going to try to build back from what Donald Trump is doing to our government. It's Donald Trump and his billionaire friends are taking an axe and they're using that axe to cut government and then pay themselves. But it's not enough for us to go back. We need to have a vision for what this country can and should be. There's a saying in the Bible, without a vision, the people will perish. And so it is on us as organizers, and it's important that we as a party, Democratic Party, have a vision for what this country should be. And how that can look is we need to make sure we have Medicare for all. Nobody should ever worry about their health care. Nobody should ever worry about having food on their table because there's not a grocery store there, let alone SNAP benefits. Nobody should ever worry about having a roof over their head simply because they can't pay property taxes, nor can they pay rent. Nobody should have to worry about whether they can get from one point to another because they don't have public transit or they can't afford a car. We need to give people the basic level of safety and dignity they deserve. And we need to do that because we need to make sure that working people have what they're supposed to have in life. What we have right now are people who are making money hand over fist, destroying the lives of working people, cutting Medicaid, cutting SNAP, cutting environmental protections so that they can get a second, a third yacht. I would say for me, it's not about someone getting another yacht. It's important for us to have it so that people can have the basic things they need in their life.
So, Robert, we're proud to stand with you. One question: tell us about the state of the race. We heard about Troy's facing legacy, dynasty candidates. Uh, uh, Donovan's facing well-funded, incumbent. Tell us a little bit about your race, who's in it, and how the state of play is in terms of fundraising and volunteers, and how our revolution can help.
Yeah, so we've had an amazing, of course, with the endorsement of Bernie Sanders, which has gone such a long way. We've raised almost $500,000. We have almost 15,000 individual contributions. We're averaging $27 an online contribution. We have had an amazing start to this campaign. Organizations have hopped on. We've had ATU sign on. UFCW Local 881 have been supportive. We just got the county board president to be supportive. Our campaign has broad and popular support, but there are people who are trying to do whatever they can to get whatever outside money they can have to play in this race. And they can appeal to Republican billionaires to play in a Democratic primary. And so we need as much help from our revolution leaders as possible. We are literally making sure that we can knock on every door, that we can communicate to every voter, and that we can tell them about the vision we have for this country through this race. And so I hope folks know that they can visit my website at robertpetersforcongress.com. They can learn more, they can see more, donate, give, and sign up. That would be fantastic because we know that big money interests and Donald Trump and his billionaire friends don't want to see a progressive champion in the Illinois 2nd Congressional.
That's right. So again, Robert Peters, we're proud to endorse you. We're going to go all out to help make sure you win this election in 26 and help us retake the House and create a foothold in our fight against Donald Trump and the oligarchs. So thank you for joining us, brother.
Of course. Thank you and solidarity, everybody.
Now it's my honor to bring up our board chair, Larry Cohen. Larry's a longtime DNC member, former union president, former advisor to Bernie, and he's been in the fight for a long time, and he gets in his bones about the problem that big money and the billionaires are causing and how they're corrupting our entire political process, starting with the Democratic Party. Larry is going to lead a discussion with Jane Klebb and Shushila Jayapal about a new effort to try to get big money out of the Democratic Party, out of the primaries. And I want to also mention that Larry just wrote an op-ed about this topic. It was published in Barn Raisers, and it's about why voters, not big money, should be the deciders when it comes to Democratic nominees. We're going to drop that link in the chat. Brother Cohen, welcome to our Organized to Win call again.
Yeah, great to be with you as always. And there's a really radical idea, Joseph. Voters should actually determine who the candidates are. Gee, voters, not big money. So having said that, we heard already tonight from 3 great candidates, but I like to say it's the rules, not just the rulers, that we have to focus on. And a number of people in the chat and a couple of the candidates mentioned Citizens United 2010 Supreme Court ruling. And what Citizens United said is money and speech are the same thing. And so that really gave birth, and this is a fast version, to these giant organizations that nobody ever heard of, giant in terms of money, called and the independent expenditures of these organizations. And that word is an oxymoron in many ways. Independent expenditure. So it's not the candidate's campaign. It's a campaign theoretically run by these outside groups. And you heard crypto mentioned or APAC mentioned or Elon Musk threatening and spending his money through these organizations. But what's really key here, this is not to moan about it. This next segment with two amazing sisters who are working on this every day, Sushila Jayapal from Oregon, Jen Klebb from Nebraska, and from our own board. Sushila, a candidate that we endorsed when she ran last year. And we'll hear from them in a minute. But people say to me, so what is an independent expenditure and why can we do something about it? So I defined it already. Again, it's a made-up organization typically, or even a real organization, spending money, unlimited amounts because of Citizens United in a campaign parallel to the candidate's campaign. So there's no rules about where that money comes from. Very often it's corporate money or it's so-called dark money. No disclosure as to who it is, which billionaires or millionaires are spending the money. And what's key here tonight, so I want to focus on, well, it's Supreme Court decision. So why can we do anything? Because political parties, political organizations themselves are actually protected by that decision to have their own rules. And that's really why, and it's not been talked about enough, although Jane and I have been fighting this for 6 years at the DNC level. And now what we're going to talk about is what can state parties do and what is the DNC hopefully about to do? Because political parties, whether it's the Democratic National Committee or whether it's the 57 state parties or even a county party, they are organizations that can adopt rules to block independent expenditures or limit independent expenditures or eliminate independent expenditures so that it's only the campaign funding, only, I put in quotes, and the candidates speaking to one another and the voters getting involved, knocking on those doors and talking to each other. And it's real organizing that would matter again. So that's what's at stake here. As Donovan said, yeah, sure, if we get a Congress again, which we have had, we're not going to dwell on that now, that can change these rules, we can change them for everybody. But in the meantime, we can say to the Democratic Party nationally and in every state, we want to adopt rules in our state or at the DNC to block that money. So with that, let me first bring up an amazing candidate that we were so excited to support for Congress in Portland, Oregon last year, Sushila Jayapal. Sushila, welcome to the Our Revolution Town Hall once again.
Larry, thank you so much. Joseph, great to see you again. Really, really delighted to be here. Thank you, everybody who's tuned in from around the country. It's just so inspiring to see this. And I'll just say I am honored to be talking about what is my #1 priority with, movement warriors, Jane and Larry, who've been fighting this for such a long time.
So just start there, Sushila. Tell us about first your experience last year and, a tragedy for all of us. I mean, I think on this call, people know Sushila would have been from day one an incredible leader in this Congress, unparalleled leader in this Congress. And then secondly, if you could please tell us not only what happened to you, but what we're trying to do about it.
Yeah, thanks so much. So I ran for Oregon's 3rd District last year, 2024. I think it's fair to say that I was the front runner, in a bunch of different ways, all of the ways that people judge where a candidate is in a campaign. I had been a county commissioner. My district accounted for about 43% of the likely voters in the primary. Our polling gave us a 12-point lead over the next candidate. I was leading in fundraising 2 months out from the primary, which was in May. I had raised almost double what the next candidate had raised. And then most importantly, I had great progressive endorsements. Our Revolution, thank you so much, Bernie, AOC, my amazing sister, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal from Washington State. So really in great position. And then 6 weeks before the primary, independent expenditures started flooding our race. All in all, it was about $6 million of independent expenditures that came in. Now, that is going to sound small to people who followed races in New York or, Jamal Bowman in New York or Cori Bush in Missouri, much bigger numbers. But for Oregon, for a race that was supposed to be a quiet, sleepy, safe blue district race, that was exceptional, extraordinary amounts of money, dwarfed anything that the candidates had raised. So 6 weeks before the primary, that money started coming in. Several things that were really important about the way it came in and who it came from. First of all, as you mentioned, Larry, we didn't know where it was coming from. Well, we did. Our campaign did. Voters didn't know where it was coming from because it was dark money, and there were no disclosures, or very few, until after the election had happened. So that was a huge problem, and is a huge problem, including potentially for these inspiring candidates that we heard from earlier in the program. It came from out of Oregon. This was millionaires and billionaires spending money in a race in Oregon. I'll give you an example. Michael Bloomberg put $500,000 into this little Oregon race. Somebody from Chicago put $1 million into this race. It was a small number of people spending extraordinary amounts of money in order to defeat me. So that was what we experienced. We know, we knew at the time, and then it was confirmed after disclosures were made. The money came from AIPAC. It was AIPAC donors, AIPAC super PACs that were spending in this race. And we lost, and by we, I mean our progressive movement lost a race that was bought by the people who funded those expenditures. And I just, I will repeat what you said, Larry. The voters of the 3rd District in Oregon had a right to make that decisions themselves. And it is almost impossible to do when you've got these millionaires and billionaires funding campaigns to buy elections. So that's what I experienced. What am I doing? I'm working with you, Larry, and I'm working with Jane now to really limit independent expenditures in Democratic primaries. I think for a long time, there's been this sort of shrug, a collective shrug. Well, there's nothing we can do. This is the way it works. Citizens United, too hard to overturn. But as you said, state Democratic parties can control who runs in their primaries. And state parties can tell their candidates, we expect you to walk your talk, we're going to walk our talk, and we're going to make sure that we don't allow these kinds of expenditures so that Democratic voters can choose their candidates in Democratic primaries. So that's what I'm working on, really excited about it.
Yeah, outstanding. There's the example and there's the solution. Jane Klebb, welcome again to an Our Revolution Town Hall call. And great to be with you. Jane? Still see Sheila. Do we have Jane? She texted me. She's supposed to be here. Can somebody tell me if Jane's here? If not,
Yeah,
we
Jane's
will carry
here.
on. What's that?
Jane's here.
Can we put her on? Jane? No video. Jane, do you have audio? We'll go with that. Well, I'll introduce Jane. Maybe we can get her on. So Jane, who I know from the Bernie campaign in 2016, went on that year to get elected the chair of the Nebraska party, defeated the incumbent. She's won 3 or 4 times since then. And amazingly, this year, in February, she was elected president of the Association of State Democratic Committees. Jane just texted me, I've been on, so we have a technical issue. We're doing the best we can, Jane. So in February, she was elected president of all the state parties. That's called the ASDC. And that automatically made her a vice chair of the DNC. So Jane has been a champion on this issue, as I said, for 4 or 5 years. We've worked on the DNC to try to get this issue heard there. Now we're focused as much on the state parties. But Jane, if you have audio or if we've figured this out, can you tell us what we're doing, first of all, at the ASDC and then at the DNC? Well, my apologies to Jane and all of you. since I'm working with Jane, better than nothing, I'll answer the question that I asked. Maybe we can still get her on. So at the DNC level, I'll start there. It's a little bit simpler. Ken Martin, the new chair, who was on an Our Revolution town hall call with Jane back in January, supports limiting or eliminating big money, independent expenditures in the 2028 presidential nominating process. So think about a way to send a rocket on this issue across all 57 parties. The DNC now says Jane Klebb left. So anyway, I'm reporting to people what they probably saw. But so Ken Martin is committed to bringing a resolution to this meeting near the end of August in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, that would say that a small group will work with him as chair to bring to the following meeting exact things that the DNC will do to eliminate or limit independent expenditures in the nominating process for president. So obviously, if the DNC begins that process by saying we're passing a resolution that this is a problem that we can fix and that we are going to fix it, and we vote to support that at the DNC meeting in August, and then we have the group working to say these are the specific things we can do, and I can mention things that can be done. So at the presidential level, if you have an IE and you if you have an independent expenditure on your behalf, you will have to donate a similar amount of money from your campaign to a charity. So that would essentially, that's from the Elizabeth Warren pledge that she took with her Republican opponent in 2012. And this was actually enforced in that election. So we call this the People's Pledge. The DNC could require anyone running for president to sign that pledge, as they've had to sign other pledges in the past. Is Jane back on?
Can you hear me, Larry?
Yes, and we see you too.
Good,
Why don't you carry this on?
I don't know
then?
what happened anyway, so I logged back off and logged on. We'll just blame like rural broadband being awful and another thing we can yell at Republicans about. So Larry, everything that you were describing is 100% correct. There are lots of options that we could put on the table. The answer is not do nothing. The answer, like Shashila said, is not to just shrug our shoulders and say, well, we don't have the votes in Congress to overturn Citizens United. So, Chairman Martin is absolutely dedicated to pursuing a path to figuring this out. He is going to be talking about this at the August DNC meeting. We will be in Minneapolis. He wants us to enjoy his home state's state fair. So that's where our next DNC meeting is going to be. So he will be unveiling the next steps that he is going to take with getting dark money out of our primaries and the steps that the DNC can take. At the same time, the ASDC is also exploring how can we as state parties pursue this path. I will tell you there's a couple of concrete things that we are also doing. One, we had a neutrality pledge. I'm sure many of you saw that, played out in the newspapers, with David Hogg. Unfortunately, I actually think that the progressive view on that got a little bit lost. Myself and Larry and Chair Martin for the past almost decade inside the DNC have been fighting to get a neutrality pledge, which was always a pledge of the officers, to get that actually as a bylaw change, which is what Chairman Martin had asked officers to commit to. That's what all of us had committed to. Unfortunately, David Hogg wouldn't commit to that. So that's why he is no longer a officer. But that's what myself, Chairman Martin, that will be one of the reforms that Chair Martin brings forward to the DNC meeting in August, as well as making sure all of us worked our tails off for the Unity and Reform Commission the last time we came together and really did an autopsy and an audit on the DNC and put forward a set of concrete reforms. That never actually got into the superdelegate reform, the big part of that reform that we at Our Revolution pushed for and championed from the beginning, and that a lot of people didn't have our backs. I like to remind people they, called us demons and lots of other names. It seems so commonplace now. Everybody supports superdelegate reform. At the time, they did not. That's actually not in our bylaws. That's still basically a resolution of the convention body. So Chairman Martin's committed to bringing that to the DNC meeting in August and making that a bylaw change. So there are massive changes of real reforms happening to put power back in the hands of DNC members, back in the hands of state and county parties. And we are committed to taking the next steps of getting the dark money out of primaries as well.
Okay, anything else on Nebraska and what you plan to do there in terms of this issue?
Well, in Nebraska, we were one of the first states actually to make sure that we passed a bylaw change saying that we are neutral in primaries. That was a big step for us. And we're moving forward resolutions, just like some of the other states in Washington, to then do a bylaw change at our state convention. We do big bylaw changes at our state convention every 2 years. So that'll happen next year, but we're moving forward that. And, these types of reforms can be happening at your state and county level. So if you're interested in doing this, obviously, make sure you're contacting Our Revolution. It's going to be important that we know who the allies are in all of the states. So when we are pursuing this at the state level, you all have sample resolutions and sample platform ideas that you can bring to your county convention, your state convention, in order to get these reforms passed at the state level.
Okay, awesome, and great to see you again. Let me just, I've been reading the chat, and I want to bring some of this together. There's a whole list of things that state parties can do. And it starts by saying to candidates, and it can be at every level or at any level, in order to run as a Democrat in a primary or to be a candidate as a Democrat, you need to sign the People's Pledge. And again, that's what Elizabeth Warren and her Republican opponent did. So not too much to ask from Democrats who say they're against Citizens United. We're talking about the nominating process, not the general election. That's going to require Congress or a court action to change Citizens United in a general election. But we can change this. One is the pledge. Two would be that if you violate it, and this was part of the pledge that Warren created, and Elizabeth Warren in 2012, you'll have to donate a similar amount of money that was spent on your behalf or to demonize your opponent. That's what happened to Sushila, from your campaign to a charity. So again, we're not going to be able to go through all that, but if you think that through, that would be a reason that a Bloomberg won't donate the money, because then the campaign, in that particular case, of Sushila's opponent would have to take campaign money and donate it to a charity in a similar amount. I mentioned you won't be able to debate when the party has debates about who's our candidate going to be. You won't get access to voter lists. There's all kinds of things that can be done to block and eliminate and limit these kinds of big money expenditures that pick our candidates. And lastly, I would just say, why do we care about this? Because politics should be about the things we love. It's not like, it can't just be a baseball or football team. My team won and your team lost. It's supposed to be about what you heard from those candidates. And with Jane and Sushila, why are they active? It's supposed to be about Medicare for all. We can't even get to Medicare for all if we get corporate candidates, big money candidates, crypto candidates who are nominated in our party. And for all of us, who aren't the candidates themselves, there's no reason for us to do this work. Or there's not enough of a reason if we can't imagine getting the things we really care about. In my case, I spent a lifetime, workers' rights, the right to organize and bargain. They're a sham in this country. How are we going to get candidates elected who support workers' rights if corporate money plows into our Democratic primaries in the one-party districts, which is 80% of the House districts, and then they nominate people, nominees win, who don't support that or who don't care about it or who give lip service to it. Every single issue, we could go right down the line, from healthcare reform to workers' rights to a living wage to make the billionaires pay their fair share. Any issue you think of, a good foreign policy, limit defense spending, get all the military contractors pile in, and those billionaires. So for me, this is a starting point so that we can really say to people, get involved, we make a difference, as opposed to get involved and any old blue will do. Now, at the end of the day, I vote for any old blue. And most of the time, I shouldn't say all the time, to be fair. But the point being that that's not the solution. The solution is that it's our voice, as Jane Kleb said to me, it's our voters, not the money, that's going to decide on who our nominees are. And then we can build a kind of base that actually believes we're fighting for the things we love. Jane, anything, last words?
The only other thing that I wanted to say to give more hope to folks is that we are literally doing analysis of all of the state parties right now. We've already done half of them. We've done over 550 interviews with grassroots folks, county party leaders, state party leaders, elected officials, candidates, allied organizations. We are analyzing the state parties while we're also doing an audit at the national level of what did we do right, what did we do wrong in the 24 cycle, so we can present not only a report of the national campaign and what we can change for the next presidential cycle, but what are we doing right and wrong at the state party level? We're putting more resources. We were only 8% of the DNC budget was going back to the states. Since I've become president and Ken Martin's become chair of the DNC, that's now 22% of the budget is now going back to the states. So my message is real change is happening. You may think it's not happening fast enough. I sometimes agree with you, but trust me, there are those of us inside the system as well as all of us outside the system that need to keep on pushing and be involved in your county and state party. Even if you think those meetings on the surface are boring or you're frustrated that there's a gatekeeper, keep on showing up because we need you. We need your creativity. And when you keep showing up, that door finally starts to open. And those old timers, they might have been you back in the day, right? Who kind of burst down the door and they're kind of testing you out to make sure that you're dedicated. So I'm just asking that all of us continue to be involved reforming your party on the inside. And lastly, we are looking at how we are going to do the presidential primaries as well. I don't have information on that yet because that's going to be a whole process that the Rules and Bylaws Committee engages in over the next several months. But there will be a whole new primary process that we engage in, and your voices will be very important as we make those decisions next year.
Okay, Sushila, last words from you?
Yeah, just a couple. To me, this question, this problem of big money in elections generally, certainly in primaries, is the answer to all of the questions that go, why don't we have affordable housing? Why don't we have affordable accessible health care? Why don't we have, all of the why don't we haves? This to me is the foundational answer. So I am so encouraged by the work that Larry and Jane and lots of folks have been doing on this. I guess I would add one more thing, which is that in terms of what you all can do, folks out there listening to this, ask the candidates who come to you and ask you for money, ask the candidates who come to you and ask you for your vote, ask them if they would take the People's Pledge, right? Ask them if they will walk their talk. Go to as Jane said, go to those Democratic Party meetings, ask your party, your county party, your state party, whether they will impose a concept like the one Larry mentioned, which is tell your candidates to aggressively act against independent expenditures and put a framework behind it to back it up. So, that's my call to action. Get out there, talk about the People's Pledge, talk about money in politics, and thank you.
Thank you. And I would just say the other thing that everybody here can do, because we believe here in the call to action, is within your own state party, bring this up. Run for delegate to a state convention. Don't just let them decide all these things. And it will not be easy, but let me say that Arizona and North Carolina in the last 2 months passed resolutions to figure out how they will end independent expenditures and get big money out of their nominating process. And there's work going on in Washington State, Oregon, Nebraska, many other, Massachusetts, where grassroots activists just like us are raising this issue. So join them, join us. And with that, I'll turn it back to Vincent.
Thank you so much, Larry, and thanks for everybody who spoke and with their incredible words. You have heard tonight why we need to elect more bold, progressive candidates and fight to get oligarch money out of Democratic primaries. And some of those candidates were just incredible. All of them were. I was tearing up from some of those personal stories. These two things, fighting to get oligarch money out of our primaries and fighting to elect real progressive champions to Congress and to governor seats. These are two pieces of the larger fight against the oligarchy. Our movement is committed to taking on Trump and the oligarchs on every front, and there are a ton of ways for you to get involved, big and small, here at Our Revolution with our Citizen Action team. There are over 60,000 folks on this team, activists around the country who are already part of our Citizen Action team. We are dropping a link in the chat now where you can sign up and choose your role, whether it be organizing events, amplifying our message on social media, phone banking, knocking on doors, whatever it may be. This upcoming Sunday, we are having a Zoom to talk through what folks are planning to do at home during Congress's August recess to put their representatives' feet to the fire to make sure that they are advocating for our people's agenda and not doing the bidding of the oligarchy. And we'd love to see you there. But go and sign up at that link in the chat. So incredible to be on this Zoom with so many awesome leaders and champions and with so many amazing folks like you who are fighting every day against this administration and against the oligarchy for a future that works for all of us. So all together now, all of us who are here on the panel, when we organize,
We win.
win. Thanks, everyone.
Solidarity.
Solidarity.